Okay, we are live. So we are going live after a long time, but this time we are going to talk about a topic. So last time we did Menti quiz, which was fun, and today we are going to talk about an important concept. See, basically the idea behind this sort of session is to make you understand the importance of a particular topic. I'm talking about Spring from a long time, So we have made the entire course with Spring 5. Now we are upgrading to Spring 6. And in the industry as well, if you talk about the tech industry, where you talk about different development in big companies, most of them are using Java for the big projects. And the most famous framework there is Spring. So Spring becomes a very important topic to understand. But whenever we start talking about Spring, there's one question in our mind, right? Why? Why we need a framework to build applications? People who have learned Core Java, they're very happy with it. Maybe they want to make a web application, they use Servlet JSP. I mean, that's a old thing now. But then it becomes difficult to understand why do we need a framework to build something. And not just with Java. If you talk about any language, frameworks plays an important role. So tools and frameworks is but that particular language. And when it comes to Java, the famous framework is Spring. Of course, it's not the only framework available. There are different options available, but Spring is used everywhere. So in today's topic, the idea is to discuss why Spring, and we'll talk about the concept of loose coupling. So Heather will be taking a session, so he has the entire map ready with him. So once he joins the session, he will talk about the things. And before we start, I just want to take some questions from the chat, and we're just waiting for everyone to join because YouTube will take some time to send the notifications. Clear one thing, sir, you will cover all Spring course. So Spring itself, if you're talking about this video or the course we're launching, if this video, of course, we cannot talk about entire Spring. It's a huge topic. We just have a session for hour or so. Ashad says Spring or Spring Boot, which should you learn first? See, you can directly work on Spring Boot. So what happens is Spring is a framework. But then when you work with Spring Framework, there are certain configuration which you have to do. What if you want to get started in 2 minutes? And that's where we got Spring Boot, where you can build the APIs in minutes, in 5 minutes. So of course, when you build application, you are going to use Spring Boot. But if you really want to understand how Spring Boot works behind the scene, it's important to understand what is Spring Framework and how it works. Oh, thank you so much, Kushal. Oh. How long this session will be? Around an hour. From Ireland, hi. Hello. So I think you're all set for this session. So the idea behind this session is going to talk about why Spring, and so that you can actually learn this framework, and it's fun to work on this framework. And for this, I will call Heather, and most of you have seen Heather before on this platform or in the course which we have. So he's one of the best Java trainer you can find, and he'll be talking about why Spring and different concepts. So before we do that, let me just take care of all the housekeeping stuff. IntelliJ. Let me just close all the other windows. Awesome. Okay, so all set. Cool. So now I'm handing over to Heather, and you can show your face, Heather. Okay, that's Heather who will be talking about this session. And before we do that, let me just minimize the screen. We'll start in 1 minute.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Naveen sir, for the opportunity again to be in Telesco YouTube channel. And now we are going to discuss one of the most important concept, as we have discussed the purpose of Spring, or you can say the title loose coupling. Fine. So to understand loose coupling or whatever topic we are going to discuss, you should have idea about Java. Even otherwise, even if you have no idea on the Java, you can still understand. But if you have idea on core Java, if you know the concepts such as polymorphism, abstraction, or interfaces, it will be easy for you to understand whatever we are going to discuss. Everyone agrees that Spring right now is one of the trending framework for Java developers. Anyone who knows Java, if they want to build the application, they have to go with Spring Boot. Spring Boot is being used in the industry. Fine. So now we need to understand what problem Spring is trying to solve. That is what we need to understand here. Why people are behind the Spring framework. Even though many of them might know Spring, might have worked here and there in the Spring, they know some of the annotations, they know how to configure few things, but most of them doesn't even know what problem Spring is trying to solve. Fine. So even if you know, you will get more clarity in this session. Or if you know Java, if you have idea on Java, and if you have heard about Spring and Spring Boot and you want to know what problem that Spring is trying to solve, that is what we need to understand in today's session. Fine. So having said that, let's get started. The major topic is why Spring, why Spring Boot, why framework, and what is loose coupling. Whenever you hear the term Spring framework, you will also hear Spring is there to decouple the dependencies we have between the classes. Spring is there to solve the problem of tight coupling. It will, using the Spring framework, you can achieve loose coupling, and whatever dependencies we have between the classes, that dependencies will be decoupled if you go with the Spring framework. And you will hear the terms such as dependency injection and inversion of control. Very, very important terms. If you say, even if you are experienced, if you are a fresher, if you say you know Spring, and if you have added Spring in your resume, you will be asked question on what exactly dependency injection is and what is inversion of control, because that is the base of the entire framework. Now we will understand that without even touching the Spring framework. That means if you know Java, even if you have no idea on the Spring, we will understand the purpose of Spring without even creating a Spring project. That is what we need to achieve here. So having said that, just acknowledge once in the chat. Can we just kickstart the journey? Let me know. Great. I'll be taking some of your questions also in between or at the end. Great. Now, why we have Spring? What exactly it is trying to solve? What is dependency injection? What is inversion of control? Without even creating a Spring project, we have to understand, keep that in mind. That means it will be a Java project with only Java, understanding why Spring. It's going to be very, very interesting. Fine. Suppose we have some classes in general. Example, for an instance, before I write the code, please try to understand here. Suppose we have class. Assume that I have class alpha. Any class in that matter. Similarly, I have class beta. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. And similar to that, assume I have one more class. Doesn't matter, 2 classes, 3 classes, whatever it is. I would like to go with maybe one more class we have, which is class. I would like to go with comma. Done. Assume we have some behavior present inside the beta class. Example, we have some method here. Some activity is being performed. Some behavior we have here. Got it. And we are writing some more behavior here. Maybe the method name is show. Done. Great. Now, I want to use this display method. Example, whatever behavior I have written here, whatever activity I have written here, that activity, that behavior, I want to use, that logic I want to use in the alpha class inside the show method. There is a need arises. I'm developing some code here. Whatever code is present here, that logic I want to use here. So what is a simple answer? If you know basics of Java also, I have to invoke that method. I have to just call that display method. And Java is an object-oriented programming language. We have this display method inside the beta class. So as a Java developer, what we are going to do is we are just going to create the object of beta inside the show method. After creating the object of beta, using the reference variable, we are going to invoke display. That is what we usually do, right? Like that's the part we are going to do here. Fine. So maybe I'll just create the object of beta and then invoke the display method. Usually we do this, and this is only called as composition. Fine. And here what happens is, if something goes wrong in the beta class, something, it could be anything. Maybe some error occurred there, or maybe the class itself got deleted. Something bad happened here. Now this object directly you are creating inside the alpha. If this class is only not there, can you create the object? No. Just because something has gone wrong here and this object you have created inside the alpha, then what happened? This alpha class also will be affected. And this is only called as tight coupling, tight bonding. Fine. So these two classes are tightly coupled with each other. If something goes wrong in one more class, this class also will be affected, because in the alpha, you are going to create the object of beta. And using that, you are calling the methods which are present inside the beta. That shows these two classes are tightly bonded with each other. And do we have any other way that without we creating the object of beta, can we use the method? We have one more way, inheritance. You can just tell extends beta. The moment you say extends beta, whatever methods are present inside the beta class, that will get inherited in the alpha, and you can call that method directly. You need not to create the object. Two ways are there. But again, there also, you're telling extends beta, you are using the class name, and something goes wrong here. Maybe the class itself is deleted. That could be one of the example. It could be something else also. Again, don't you think alpha class also will be affected? Yes, 100%. So what I'm trying to say is, suppose we have a class A, if I have to simplify more, and we have a class B. Class B. And if I say here class A extends class B and something goes wrong here, delete the class B, then there will be compile time error here that there is no class B. How can you extend? This is one of the example. It could be some other thing have gone wrong here in the B class. And if you are using that name here, whether to create the object or by extending for any other purpose, then this A class also will be affected. So this is only called as tight coupling. This is only called as these two classes are tightly coupled with each other. They are tightly bonded with each other. And we have to achieve something called as loose coupling. What do we mean by that? Whatever methods, whatever facilities there here. Example, let me write this in a proper way. Suppose we have one class here. Class alpha. Great. Inside this class, I would like to write one method, void any method, maybe display method. It could be anything else. Fine. Similarly, we have one more class, which is class beta. Wonderful. And inside this, we have one method called as void show method. Great. Some logic is written here, and whatever code is written here, there is a need that I want to use here. Maybe I'm writing some 100 lines of code. In that, whatever code has already been written, I want to use it. Now, I want to invoke show method without directly creating the object of beta inside alpha. That means I'll not be creating the beta inside the alpha. Object itself will not create. I should be calling. You may say make it static. Even if you make it static, you're going to use the class name beta.show. No, I will not even use the class name also. I will not use extends beta. Inheritance, nope. I'll not be doing that. I should be using whatever show method is present, this logic which is written inside the display method, without using the reference beta. Beta class name also will not use. I will not create the object. No instance of beta will be created inside the alpha. Inside the alpha, no instance of beta will be created. No reference variable of beta will be created. I will not be using extends beta. I will not be using the class name itself. Still, I have to invoke the show method. I want to use this. I should be using it. How do we do this? If you know basic Java, don't you think it's against the Java? One way is I'll extend beta. The moment you say extends beta, these methods get inherited here. I can use it. I can use it. The moment I say extends, it's fine. I don't want to use it. Extends beta means you're using the class name of beta. I don't want that also to happen. One more way, create the object of beta. No, I don't want to create directly. If I create directly, then if something goes wrong in the beta, this class also, alpha class also will be affected. And this is tight coupling. I don't want that to happen. Then what are you trying to achieve? I want to use the facility which is available in one more class inside the alpha class without creating the object of beta, without creating the instance. I mean, I'll not even take the class name also here. Nowhere you will see beta class name. Still, I'll be using the services. How do we do that? Usually we create object, we call the method. If it is a static method, then using the class name, we invoke the method. Or if not, we go with inheritance. You are telling that we are not going to use inheritance also. We are not going to use static also. We are not going to use the class name itself. Still, we can use the services of other classes inside one class. That is what we need to understand. And that is only called as loose coupling. That is only called as loose coupling. And now we will see that loose coupling. By developing a normal Java project without even touching the Spring framework, we will understand what exactly loose coupling is in Java and what Spring is trying to solve. By default, you will understand. You will have an entire idea on why people are behind the Spring framework. And of course, people say Spring is there to decouple the dependencies between the classes. 100% yes. But what exactly is that? Let's understand that here. Let's create a new project here, and we'll just try to do that. Okay. I'll be developing one project here. I would like to give the project name as Telescope Courses application. Whatever you want, you can give randomly right now. In the live class, I'm just generating this Telescope. Okay. Courses application. Courses application. Done. It's a Java project, Java 17. I would like to say here, generate this project, new Java project. The project is ready. Wonderful. Let me get to the proper readability. It's a main method, and we do have all this available with us. Great. Okay, done. Main method is available. Now what we are going to do here, if you want to achieve loose coupling, or if you want to make your application loosely coupled, always whatever actual business logic is there, actual implementation is there, actual implementation of the business logic or service layer, you should never write direct implementation. Rather, under the behavior design pattern, if I'm not wrong, there is something called a strategy design pattern. As per that, don't worry much on the patterns. If I have to simplify and just tell you, always we should code to interface. Code to interface. We should directly never write the implementation. If you directly write the implementation classes, you will never achieve loose coupling. If you want to achieve, if you want to achieve the loose coupling, then you have to create the interface, then you have to create the class on that. Fine. And one of the questions telling that in your own channel, could you please start Spring? You have told you have not started. Due to busy schedule, we will announce on that. Right now, let's understand this, the whole purpose, which is very, very important. We'll talk on that. Code to interface. That means directly don't write the class. Inside the interface, usually, if you know bit of Java also, interface is all about abstraction, providing the specification, what needs to be done. We will not be writing any logic there. We will just provide the specification. You can say requirement if I have to simplify and tell. Whatever requirement we will have there, we are just going to implement using the class. That's how we are going to do, right? So code to interface means don't write direct implementation. Write the requirement, specify what you need to achieve using the interface, and then implement that whatever plan you have specified inside an interface in a class. Don't directly create a class and write your business logic. Don't do that mistake. Always code to interface. And if you could able to do that, easily you can achieve loose coupling. And how do we do that? We will see to it. Fine. So now you can see our ID is ready. Okay. Done. I hope now it is fine. Great. Now, I would like to create a new Java class here. Okay. And the class name which is going to use the services of other class. Example, right now in the example I've shown you, alpha class is going to use the services of beta class. Now, like alpha, I'm going to write one more class, which is going to use services of other classes, code of other classes, and that other classes object also in this class we will not be creating. That reference class name only also we will not be writing it. And how do we do that? We need to see. And I would like to create a class here. And the class name, I would like to give it as maybe launch Telescope application is the class name I had given there. Okay, that's fine. And I would like to say here launch course. Launch course. Done. We have a class present here, launch course. And this is one part of the story. And inside the launch course, I am going to use services which is present within other classes. Now, which are those other classes? Fine. So the entire application is, if you want to purchase a course, or you can say a simple application through which you can purchase some courses, just a replica of a bigger application, how we actually develop it. Okay. Now, always code to interface. That is what we need to understand. Whatever actual business logic you are going to, understand, that we need to see here. Fine. So let me just create one interface here. Whatever services which we are going to develop, those services I will specify. That means using the interface, I will give my requirement of what we are going to develop. Okay. I would like to just right click, new, and one interface I would like to create. Okay. All right. Let's go with this. Not just Java class. Let's go with the interface. All right. I'll give the interface name as course. Okay. Course is the name of the interface. Done. Interface is ready. And within this, I would like to provide some specification. One of the specification I would like to write here is Boolean type, maybe get the course, or I'll say here get the course, whatever the method name, doesn't matter. And I would like to just write here double type of amount. All right. Always go with the wrapper. I would like to go with double type of amount. All right. Okay. It should be double class, or you can go with the normal primitive also, not a problem. All right, done. This is the requirement. There are 3 classes which are going to implement this. I would like to write those 3 classes here. Okay. There are 3 courses out of which you can decide which course you want to buy. And all those 3 classes will implement this particular interface. Keep that in mind. I would like to right click here, create a class, normal Java class. And the class name, I would like to go with maybe Spring Boot course. I would like to say here Spring Boot. Okay, done. So we have one class here. How much ever courses we have, that many courses I'll be creating in separate classes. We have one Spring Boot course. Suppose we have a Hibernate course. And we have one more course, which is anything, maybe Java course. I would like to give it as Java. Okay, Java course. All right, it's not yet created. I would like to say new. I would like to give the name as Java course. Done. All right. So we have 3 courses: Spring Boot course, Hibernate course, Java course. All 3 courses implements course interface, code to interface. Always remember this, code to interface. They implements one interface called as course. All right, done. And of course, we have to give the implementation for this. Let's implement. I would like to implement this. And this part, I would like to reuse. In other classes also. I'm going to keep the same. I'm keeping in mind you are little bit aware of Java. Okay. And now you are going to understand what exactly it is trying to solve. Great. I would like to save this. Fine. Save this also. Code to interface. Actual services are courses. Spring Boot, Hibernate, Java. They are the actual services of the application. Am I writing direct classes? No. I'm following code to interface. I have written one interface. I have specified what is the requirement, and those requirements I'm trying to fulfill here. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just print right now. I will just use system.out.println. I'm going to use here course, or I would like to say which is this course right now. Simple, very simple application. Spring Boot course is purchased and fee paid is whatever the amount which we are going to receive from the end user. We are going to specify that. Done. And after doing this, if someone is invoking this method, to the caller of this method, I'm going to return true. That means everything is executed very well. Making sense? And similar to this, same part of the code, I'm going to write within this Hibernate course also. And here I'm going to specify Hibernate. Hibernate. Fine. Okay. Understand this. Now, I'm going to save this. Let me go to the Java. And here also, I'm going to add this. And here I would like to say Java. And true it is. Fine. So basically, we have 3 courses here. One is Java course, one is Hibernate course, one is Spring Boot course. Done. All the 3 classes, I have code to interface. I have followed strategy design pattern, and I'm not writing the implementation directly. I'm writing this code to interface. By following this design pattern, I'm writing the code. I have written the specification. I have implemented whatever requirement I have specified in these classes. Done. Now, launch course, this is the class where I'm going to use services which is available in other classes. Fine. If it is a functional interface, we can use Lambda expression. That's true. Right now, it is having only one abstract method, and all this can be implemented using the Lambda expression also. Right now, that is not the agenda. Fine. I'm not going to implement Lambda expression here. It's not needed. The purpose of this code is not to implement just one normal interface. No. By purpose, we have planned to develop the application in this style to achieve something called as loose coupling. Now, here I'm going to write one method here. I would like to say here boolean, and I would like to specify by the course. Great. And here I'm going to accept double type of amount. Done. And whoever will invoke this method, for them what to return, we will say right now I'll return true. Okay, done. Now, launch course is a main class, first of all, right? Great, wonderful. In this class, I want to use services which is written inside Spring Boot class, Hibernate class, or Java class. I want to use those services inside this launch course. Fine. Without creating the object of Spring Boot, Hibernate, or Java. That means inside Spring Boot, inside Hibernate, inside Java, we have one method called as get course method, get the course method. Yeah, we do have that. I want to invoke this. I want whatever code is written inside this particular method, I want to use that particular method. I want to use this logic which is written inside the launch course. Great. So whatever logics are written inside Spring Boot, Hibernate, and Java class, those logics, those methods, I want to use inside launch course. Fine. But without creating the object of Spring Boot, Hibernate, Java inside launch course directly. I'll not be using the classes names also. In this launch course, nowhere I will use the name Spring Boot, Hibernate, Java. Nowhere I will use the name. I will not inherit also. I will not say extend Spring Boot, extend Hibernate, extend Java. No, I'm not going to do that. Am I going to create the object like this? Maybe I'll say here Java type j equals to new Java. I'm creating the instance, and after creating the instance, I'll say j dot get the course. No, I'm creating the object. It is tightly coupling. This is called as tight coupling. Example I'm telling. This is called as tight coupling. I know want to create the object. Then I'll not be creating the object directly here. Fine. I'll not be inheriting. Fine. Still I should be able to call this method. How is that possible? How is that possible? That is what we need to achieve here. If you want to achieve that, already all the classes which are providing the services such as Spring Boot class, Hibernate class, Java class, they have been written by following one design pattern. They are coded to interface, not the direct implementation. And all these classes are implementing one interface. And in Java, if you know the concept of polymorphism, using parent type reference, you can invoke methods present, overridden methods present in the child classes. Similarly, using interface type reference, you can invoke the overridden methods present inside the implementing classes. So we have one interface here called as course. I'll be creating the reference variable of that interface. Private. I would like to go with course type course. Done. Interface reference variable I have created. Wonderful. Now in Java, as per the rule, all these classes are implementing interface, right? So using this interface type reference, whatever implementing methods are present inside these classes, right, you can invoke. So what I'm going to do right now is I will say here course dot get the course, and I'm going to follow here. I'm going to maybe pass some amount here. Okay, 0.9, some amount I'll pass. Course dot get the course, and all this get the course method of all the classes which are implementing course type interface, all three classes implementing that interface, right? All three classes, and they are returning what? Boolean. The return type is Boolean. You can see the return type is Boolean. So if you invoke this particular method, that will return you Boolean value. So if you want, you can collect it. If you want, you can collect it like this. Boolean type maybe status equals to, and whoever is invoking this method, for them, you can just return status. You can do that. Instead of that, I would like to do one thing. If I invoke this method, whatever this method will return directly, that I would like to return to the caller of this method. Whoever will call this method, for them I'm going to return. Done. Now in this class, without creating the objects of Spring Boot, Hibernate, Java, I could able to do that. But here it's just a reference. We do not have any object. Some other class will create the object and will inject the object here. It's a reference variable. So what I can do right now is very good step. I would like to just go with, and you can just generate. You have an option of generating. I would like to generate the setter. Okay. Setter is ready. For this reference variable, setter is ready. Great. Keep this in mind. Done. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the main class. In my main class, I would like to just write one message also. I'll say here one message. I would like to just add one message here. The message could be very simple. Okay. Welcome to Telescope application. Great. Now please see very carefully. I would like to create the object. First of all, I'm going to create the object of a target class. What do you mean by target class? Target class is such a class where services of other classes are being used. So I'm going to create the object of this launch course. I'll say course equals to new launch course. Done. First thing is done. Great. Wonderful. And now I'm going to invoke this by the course, and I'm going to pass some amount. Maybe amount is this much, 0.9. And what I'm going to do here is, here I would not like to pass the amount. Rather, what I'm receiving from the caller of this method, whoever will invoke this method, they will pass this amount. That amount I'm just using here. Okay, done. So here I'm passing the amount. Wonderful. It will return a Boolean type data, because if you invoke this, it is returning whatever this method returns. So this method returns Boolean data. So from here, the Boolean data will travel here. From here, the Boolean data will travel to the caller of this method. From the main application, I'm calling that method. Fine. Now, I'm going to collect it back here. Focus is the key. I hope you're listening with all the focus. Boolean type status. And I'm going to write here one logic. If the status is true, then I would like to just print one message. The message could be course purchased successfully. Right? Done. Else I'm going to write system.out.println. I'm going to say here failed to purchase the course, failed to buy the course, whatever name you want, whatever message you want, you can give it. Okay, done. Now please see very carefully. To this class, I'm going to say course dot set course. It is expecting me to pass an object which course can hold. So now I'm going to create new Java object. I'm passing the entire object. Either you can create separately, you can pass the reference variable. I can just create the object of Java type J equals to new Java, and this object reference you can pass here. Object reference you can pass here. That's fine. Both of them are same. Instead of me doing this, I would like to just, directly say here course dot set. And now I would like to say here maybe new Java course, for example. Done. I would like to save this. Please see very carefully. I'm creating the instance of launch. Great. And now I'm calling one set course method which is present inside this launch course. And in the set course method, I'm passing Java object. Done. Let me open the class launch course. Fine. Now what I'm going to do here is, in this I have set course, and here what is being passed? Java object is being passed. It is equivalent to this. It is equivalent to this. Course type maybe course equals to new Java. It is equivalent to this because whoever is invoking this particular method, they are passing one Java object here. They are passing one Java object. So Java object is present. Now, in this reference variable, which object is present? Java object. Now, if I say course dot get the course method of which class is being invoked here? Get the course method of Spring Boot class or Hibernate class or Java class. Get the course method of Java class is getting invoked. And in this particular class, anywhere directly, have you used Java name, that class name? Have you directly created the object of Java here? No. Are you using the Java reference variable of that class? No. Are you using extend Java? No. So in this launch course, a class where other classes services are being used. That means launch course is a class where other classes, Spring Boot class, Hibernate class, Java class, these are the classes which are providing services. Some business logic is written. So inside my launch course, am I able to use services which are present inside Spring Boot or Hibernate or Java without directly creating the object of any of those classes? See, in this entire class, have we created anywhere object of Java in the code? Have we told Java type j equals to new Java? No. Have we told extend Java? No. Have we used a reference variable of Java? No. Making sense? Nowhere. Still we are able to do it. Now, such a class where services of other classes are being used are called as target class. And in that class, whatever object you are passing, whichever object whose service will be used is called as dependent object. This is a target class. This is a dependent class. To this target class, you are injecting dependent object. Dependent object means this target class is in need of this object, so that inside this class, it can use services of some other classes. Fine. So here, I want to use services which are present inside Spring Boot class, services which are present inside Hibernate, services which are present inside Java. Deal. Done. But inside this, I want to use the object, but directly I will not be creating the object. I will not create the object of Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate. Still, I want to use services which are present inside those classes without creating the objects. That means I am asking someone else, you create the object, you pass the object to me. So now inside this launch class, directly anywhere I have not created the object. Someone else will create the object. Now I am in need, I am dependent on some object so that I can use services of those classes. Now here, what you are going to do, this is a target class. Target class means such a class where services of other classes are being used. Dependent object, such a object whose service will be used. Okay. So this is target class means inside launch course class, Java class services will be used. Java objects services will be used. Then we call Java object as dependent object. And wherever services being used, that is called as target object. Now in the target class, injecting dependent object is called as dependency injection. That means injecting dependent object. Dependent object means what? Such a object whose services will be used. So Java class services will be used. So Java is a dependent object. Injecting the dependent object in the target class. Target class means which class? Such a class where services of Java classes will be used. So injecting in the target class Dependent object is only called as dependency injection. And if you are injecting that through the setter, we call it as setter injection. What we call that as setter injection. Now you are injecting Java, and here you can see I am receiving one Java object here. So inside the course reference variable, which object is present? Java object is present. Now if I say course dot get the course method of which class will be used? Java class or Hibernate class or Spring Boot class? Java class. Fine. So now conclusion is, in launch course, am I able to use services which is present inside, methods which are present inside Java class? Yes. Did I anywhere directly created the object of Java class in the launch course? Did I say anywhere name of Java only did I use? Did I told extends Java? No. Did I created the object of Java by telling new Java? No. Nowhere I have done that. Am I able to use? Yes. Now can I say launch course is loosely coupled with Java class? Am I able to achieve decoupling the dependencies between these two classes? In the launch course, I am able to use the services of Java, but launch course nowhere directly have created the object of Java, no Java name, anywhere Java name, no, nowhere I have used. And this is only called as loose coupling. Practical use of polymorphism, practical use of runtime polymorphism. Now let me just run this. I would like to just go and run this here. Run this application. Okay. This is not yet implemented. You can see here, welcome to Telesco app. You can see the output, Java course is purchased and the fee paid is 4999. Course purchased successfully. Making sense? Example, now I'll go to the main. I will not pass Java object. I will pass Spring Boot course. I will pass maybe Spring Boot course. And the fees I'll pass, maybe I would like to go with 699. For example, I would like to save this. Now I would like to run this application. And you can see Spring Boot course is purchased and the fees paid is this. Now in the launch course, are you using services of Spring Boot course, Hibernate course, or any other course? Yes, I'm able to use. Did I anywhere in the launch class, did I use anywhere object of Spring Boot? No. Did I use the Spring Boot name also here? No. Did I say extends Spring Boot? The answer is no. Still, am I able to use the services of those classes? Yes. This is only called as dependency injection. Now, please explain the AutoWire. I'm not even using Spring Boot here. I will tell you the use of AutoWire. This is a Java project. Keep that in mind. This is only called as loose coupling. Now, what Spring is trying to solve? In the main class at least, are you creating the object of a target class? And as a developer, you yourself is creating the object of a dependent class, and you yourself is injecting that object. I am only creating the object of target class, such a class where services of other class will be used. That is a target class, tick mark. Fine. Dependent object, such a object whose services will be used. So if I say Spring Boot is a dependent object, that means Spring Boot services will be used inside, Spring Boot services will be used inside the launch course. That means Spring Boot is a dependent object. This is a target object. As a developer in the main class, I am only creating the object of target class. I am only creating the object of dependent class. I am only performing dependency injection through setter. What if I have to tell you, all this is also not required. This also, if it is not required, that is where the concept of Spring comes into picture. Spring means we are telling Spring, look, I want to develop an application which is loosely coupled. I don't want to take the responsibility of creating the objects. Here, of course, in normal Java, without using Spring only, are we able to achieve that? In the launch course, anywhere, did I create the object of Java or Spring Boot or Hibernate? No. Am I able to use the services? Yes. So without Spring Boot only we can achieve loose coupling? No. Here, when you compare launch course class with Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate classes, then definitely between these four classes, between these four classes, there is loose coupling, no problem. But at least in the main class, somewhere in the entire application, as a developer, you are creating the objects, right? You are creating the target object also, you are creating the dependent object also, you are only performing dependency injection. Now I know want to do this also. Entire application I want to develop. I know want to do this target class object creation, dependent object creation, dependency injection, all of that I know want to do. I want to dedicate this task to the Spring framework. That is where Spring framework comes into picture. I am going to say Spring, you take care of this. This is the dependent class, this is the dependent object, this is the target class. You only create the objects, you only perform the dependency injection. That means inversion of the control, entire control of the instantiations, entire control of the object creation I am handing over to whom? Spring framework. I'll be developing the application. Am I going to create the object of any classes of my application? No, nowhere you are going to create. Now in that case, I want to use the services of the Spring. From the Spring, you have to ask, a Spring, give me whichever object is suitable to this particular class. Of course, Spring framework is not there here. It will throw error. But since someone has asked about auto-wired, automatically, if I just say this much, whichever object is eligible for this reference variable, that object Spring only will inject. That means by just minimal code, we can communicate to Spring. Whichever object we need, we can talk. Example, I need course object so that I can call this method. Now, if Spring is creating the object of launch course, then I have to ask Spring, hey Spring, look, I have inverted the entire control of my application to you. You are the boss. You are going to create the objects. You are going to create the instances of all the classes which I have developed. You are going to create the objects. Whenever you want, you can talk to Spring and ask, Spring, could you please give me that bean? What do you mean by bean now? Bean means object only, but if that object is created by Spring framework within the Spring container, we call that as bean, name change. Example, I am hard coding this object. Launch course, as a developer, I have created the object. I have written new launch course. That means it is a Java instance, you can say, or you can say object, launch course object or launch course instance. Both of them are same. If same thing is being taken care by Spring framework, if Spring framework is creating the object of launch course inside the Spring container, then we call launch course as a bean. We don't call any more object, we call that as bean. Why bean? Spring is creating the object, that's it. Example, new Spring Boot, I'm creating the object. So now I can say it is a Spring Boot object, correct? If this object is being created by Spring framework and maintaining this object by Spring framework in its container, then I will not call it as Spring Boot object, then I will call it as Spring Boot bean. Okay? Making sense? Now, who will create the object? Now, I will ask my Spring, hey Spring, give me one bean. I'm asking, give me one object. Bean means object only. But Spring is like, you have to tell me in the form of beans, because if I create the objects, if I am maintaining the life cycle of that object, I will only create the object, I will only destroy the object, right? In my container, I will create my own environment, one container. Within that, I will maintain all the Java objects. I will not call them Java objects or instances. I will call that as a bean, technical name, that's it. If I have to simplify and tell. Making sense? Now, in that case, example, I want to invoke the method here by course. And suppose I am not creating the object of launch course. Nowhere I am creating the object of launch course. I am not at all creating the object only. Who is creating the object? Spring framework. Then I have to talk to Spring and told, hey Spring, give me one bean. Which bean? I will tell, give me launch bean. You have created, give me that. Why do you want? Because using that address, I want to call this method. Spring will give you that bean. Using that address, you can call this method. Making sense? Now, in that case, if all the objects are being maintained by the Spring framework, then you can achieve 100% loose coupling. You can achieve decoupling the dependencies between the classes. Right now with core Java, between launch course and Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate, between these four classes, are we able to achieve loose coupling? The answer is yes, 100% yes. In my launch course class, am I able to use services which are being coded in Java class, Hibernate class, Spring Boot class? Am I able to use the services of these classes in my launch course class? The answer is 100% yes, you are able to do that. That too, in the launch course, did I directly create the object of Java or Hibernate Spring Boot? No. Did I use the names of that classes? The answer is no. I didn't do that. Still, I am able to use the services. That means loose couplings have been achieved. However, if you look at the broader perspective of the entire application, at least in the main class, it's a normal Java core Java project, right? You have created the object of target class, such a class where services of other classes are being used. Dependent object, whose services are being used inside this class. Both the objects I am only creating. I am only injecting this object through the setter to this particular class so that this class can use services of this object. So only I am injecting. That means dependency injection I am only performing. Target class object, at least in the main class, I am doing. Dependent object I am only creating. Dependency injection I am only performing, at least in the main class. In those 4 classes we achieved, but here at least you are doing. What if I say this also you don't do it? This also makes Spring only to create target class, Spring only to create the dependent objects, Spring only to perform the dependency injection also. How easy the life will be. And that is the reason people are behind Spring Framework. If you use Spring Framework, your application will be loosely coupled. You can achieve decoupling. Your application will be totally loosely coupled. And you can use and you can develop application easily and you can maintain your application easily. Only business logic part you have to take care. Rest of all the part Spring will take care. Not just that, Spring is not restricted to this. This is the base purpose of Spring Framework. Spring is never restricted to this. In Spring, we have many modules available. We have Spring MVC. We have Spring Data JPA. Whatever steps you write in the JDBC, whatever Hibernate will replace some of the steps. And whatever together you will write lot of efforts. If you go with Spring Data JPA, 1-line code. Spring will take care of all the other unnecessary steps, boilerplate code. And I can call myself Spring as a semi-developed application. That means half of the part which is commonly developer has to do, Spring will take care of it. And you just have to worry only on the business logic. Most of the part of development, Spring will take care. That is the reason why people are behind Spring Boot. That is the reason why people are using the Spring Framework extensively in the industry. If people are using, because something is easy there. Humans always we want to use something which is very easy. And if something is difficult, as a human, we don't even go there. And if we are going, that's a proof that that is something which is very easy. Some problem it is trying to solve. And the base, Spring has so many modules, right? The base module of all is Spring Core. And Spring Core, which will give you the purpose of the entire framework. And what is the purpose? Inversion of control and dependency injection. Without even touching the Spring Framework, I hope I could able to convey the whole purpose of Spring Framework and the whole, purpose of why we have to go with decoupling here. What is the difference between component auto-wide annotation? Auto-wide component means we are telling Spring that please create the object of this. Right now it is a Java project. I have not used the library of Spring Framework. I cannot use that. Example, since you are asking, I would like to tell you, if I have to tell one annotation, that means there are multiple ways we can communicate to Spring to do that things. Example, I want my Spring to create the object of a particular class. If I want my Spring to create the object of a particular class, I am going to say here component. If you go with the Spring Boot application, component. That means I am asking my Spring, consider this as a bean. So Spring will understand I have to take care of object creation of this class. This particular class I have to take care. That's it. Auto-wide means I am going to say Spring, hey look Spring, whichever object is eligible for this reference variable, that object please inject here. Perform the dependency injection. Through these annotations, we are going to communicate, or if I have to say, we are just talking to Spring, do this, do that. And for that, we have to use annotations. And the difference between Spring and Spring Framework is Spring is actually framework. Spring Boot and Spring is the framework. Spring Boot is way of using Spring Framework. One of the way of using Spring Framework. And if you go with Spring Boot, name itself Boot, it is easy to develop the Spring application. As simple as that. So if you want to develop Spring application easily, or if you want to use Spring framework easily, then go with Spring Boot. One of the way to use Spring framework is what I can say in a simplified terms. Fine, huh? And through these annotations, it is like we are talking to Spring, do that, do this. We have some stereotype annotations, service, repository, component. We have annotations such as auto wired. That means please auto inject whatever object is eligible for this. If multiple objects are eligible, then we have to use one more annotation called as qualify or primary. Many things are there. Spring is very vast. We cannot conclude that within one specific session. But what we could able to understand is what exactly loose coupling means and why people are using Spring. Why people are behind the Spring framework, and how Spring framework will resolve the issue of tight coupling. How it will help us to achieve loose coupling. How it will help to decouple the dependencies between the classes which we have, and that I could able to convey. I hope so, and I hope those who have focused the entire session with utmost maximum focus, listen to this entire session with complete focus, they could able to understand what why we have Spring framework, and also what exactly loose coupling means. And Spring is very vast. Again, we are also coming up with one course. Many of you might have already purchased, or some of you have maybe know or may not know, which is Spring Boot and microservices. Spring Boot, Spring framework plus microservices, and that will start from absolute scratch to the advanced level. This will happen for 3 months. That means 3 months, that too Monday to Thursday, 4 days a week, 2 hours classes. That means around 8 hours a week content, 8 hours a week for 3 months or more. It might 1 or 2 week might extend. 3 months or more, every week 8 plus hours of content. 8 plus hours of content for 3 months. That means 8 into 12 plus weeks. Live interactive manner, the content will be delivered. And you can also go through the description. You will get the course link if you are interested to learn more on the Spring framework, wherein for 3 months in a live class, that 2 hours of live class, which will happen through the Zoom, which you can communicate with us in every stage, step by step, we are going to teach and make you master the entire Spring framework alongside microservices for 3 months. And whatever price you might see in the website, there are some discounts also going on. You can just go through the description. You might get some coupons also if you are interested to buy, or if any of your friends are also interested, let them go and buy. You can at least refer them, inform them if they are interested. So 3 months only on this. The prerequisite will be Java. More details are available in the website if you just want to see. And anyway, the purpose of this entire session, what we have discussed is what exactly loose coupling is, and why we have to use Spring framework to achieve loosely coupled application. I hope you could able to understand. Thank you so much, my dear friends, for being with me in today's session. Again, we might meet. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'm back. So I hope people are still there. Time for post credits. Okay, so yeah, session was fun. We have talked about loose coupling and the need for Spring framework. There are certain questions which I want to go through. Then we'll end this. From Sai, the question is difference between component and auto wired. Basically, when you say Spring will create the object for you, and let's say in your project you have multiple classes, maybe you don't want Spring to create the object for all the classes. So Spring says, okay, I will not create object for everything. What you do is, if you want me to create the object, just mark that class as a component. So on top of it, just say component. So by doing that, Spring will say, okay, now I know which object I have to create. So that is component. Auto-wired is simply where you say we have a class and the class is dependent on some other object. Now in that scenario, so let's say you have class A, class B, and you want the object of B inside A. You don't have to create an object of B by saying B obj equal to new B. You want Spring to connect it. So what you do is you wire between A and B. You say A is dependent on B, let me wire them. Now you can do it manually as well. But what if you want to do it automatically? And that's where you have to use auto wire. So that wiring will be happening automatically. And that the way you do that is with the help of auto wire. Question from Yogesh. As a beginner in dev, I'm getting confused between Java and Python because of the current IT trend. Is it better to choose AI boom or development field? See, AI boom is happening, that's for sure. But then it will take some time for the industry to adopt it. Now, it depends upon your interest. If you're someone who want to get into AI in future, of course, Python makes sense. And it's not like you cannot do AI stuff with Java. Yes, Python is more popular there, but you can do it with Java as well. But if we talk about the current scenario, AI is coming in future, right? What you will do now. So my suggestion would be, if you want to get into MNC now and work on big projects, most of them are using Java, go with that. Parallelly, you can also learn AI with Python after a few months or years, depending upon when you want to get into it. So that depends. That depends upon your approach. Okay. So looks like there's no more questions. Again, as Heather mentioned before, you can check out the description for the upcoming courses. And see you next time. And more videos are coming on this platform, so make sure that you subscribed and click on that bell icon. It helps. Bye-bye.